Where does passion come from? I'm just not a passionate person. How do I get that? Very, very simple. You've got to love what you do. Welcome your competition, because it's the competition that makes you better. It's the competition that drags out of us that which we should be doing anyway, but we don't do it till the competition makes us do it. You've got to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, you can fake passion for 2 weeks. I've done a study on that. 2 weeks, you can fake it. After 2 weeks, the gig's up. People ask me at age 62, 41 years in sports, you still into it? Listen, I'm as excited getting up every day now as I was 40 years ago when it started.
Great teams, great leadership. Pat Williams, greatness. Pat Williams is the Senior Vice President of the Orlando Magic and is highly recognized throughout the sports world as a consummate leader and motivator. He's best known worldwide for his passion and dedication to sports, beginning over 40 years ago as a minor league baseball player, then moving into management for the Phillies, the 76ers, and beyond.
Well, yes, I am the father of 19 children. The oldest is 30, the youngest is 17. There was one point a few years ago when 16 of the children were all teenagers at the same time for 1 year. That was the year I bought into the Mark Twain philosophy of raising teenagers. Mark Twain said, when your child reaches 13, you put them in a barrel, cut a hole in the barrel to feed them through, and then at 16, he said, seal up the hole. The impact of the coach and the athlete in our society today is mind-blowing. It is staggering, the magnitude of the business that we are in. To those of us in administration, we have a platform of witness, a platform of impact. Please never lose sight of that. I got a call today from my oldest son, Jimmy, on Father's Day. He works in the sports travel and ticket business. He's has been up at the U.S. Open all week. And as he's been wandering around, he made a statement to me today. And Jimmy's traveled the world and been involved in a lot of things. And he said to me today, Dad, sports is really big, isn't it? I mean, he was talking about these tents up there and these corporate outings and how all the leading business figures of the country are there and they're being schmoozed by all. He said, Dad, sports is really a big deal, isn't it? I said, Jimmy, it is. And those of us in sports have a sphere, a realm of influence second to none.
Over the past 40 years, he's become one of the nation's premier motivational speakers, appearing before thousands of organizations. He draws from his phenomenal success as a leader of teams, father of 19 children, including 14 adopted from 4 foreign countries, and best-selling author of over 30 books, including The Paradox of Power, The Power Within You, Play to Win, How to Be Like Mike, and American Scandal, The Crisis of Character. Pat Williams, greatness. The power of great character.
Well, I don't think you can write a book unless you're passionate about the subject, unless you have an insatiable curiosity about the subject. I mean, you can't write about it. So I wrote a book a few years ago on one of my baseball mentors, Bill Veeck, the great baseball promoter. I did over 700 interviews trying to learn about Bill Veeck. I did a book a year or so ago on Michael Jordan, How to Be Like Mike. And I interviewed over 1,500 people who knew Michael, who had a Michael story or anecdote. Man, I got carried away with that. And now I'm doing the same with Walt Disney and Rich DeVos and Jackie Robinson. I've already done over 800 interviews learning about Jackie Robinson. So yes, out of the study, which comes from curiosity, you become a real student of these people or this topic. And then I find you can take that right over into the speaking world. I'm in the process of writing a book about Jackie Robinson. His widow Rachel has given me her blessing. How to Be Like Jackie. I was 7 years old when Jackie came into the big leagues in Brooklyn. And I have memories of that as a kid growing up in the Philadelphia area. You probably know the story. Branch Rickey, the Dodger president, making a decision after World War II that he was going to bring a black baseball player to Brooklyn, camouflage it for a while, send his scouts out to find the right person, not just the right athlete, but the right person. They made the decision that Jack Roosevelt Robinson was their guy. They brought him into Brooklyn for an interview. Clyde Sukeforth, who died a year ago at age 98, was the scout who escorted Jackie into Brooklyn. He recorded his memoirs. It's fascinating reading. Mr. Rickey sat down with Jackie Robinson, reenacted every possible scene that could take place in Jackie's career. He was a hotel clerk at a hotel in the South. He was a ball player on another team, also a Southerner. He was a rabid fan, a leather-lunged fan up in the stands in St. Louis. I mean, he reenacted all of this for Jackie. And then said, Jackie, you got to make a commitment to me that for 3 years, 1 year in Montreal, 2 years in the big leagues, you're going to walk away. You're going to turn the other cheek. And Jackie thought about it for a minute and said, Mr. Rickey, do you mean you want a ball player on your team who's afraid to fight back? And Mr. Rickey said, no, 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 Jackie. I want a ball player who has the courage not to fight back. He said, if we have an incident, he said, it's going to set this thing back 20 years. You've got to turn the cheek. You've got to promise me that. Clyde Sukeforth in his memoirs wrote, he said there was a silence in that room. You could have cut it with a knife. And finally, Jackie, with that shrill voice of his, broke the silence when he said, Mr. Rickey, he said, there will be no incident. And Clyde Sukeforth wrote, I thought Mr. Rickey was going to kiss him. And the grand experiment was launched. As I study, as I've interviewed over 750 ball players who played in that Robinson decade, I truly believe that Jackie was not aware at the time of what was going to be coming at him. I don't think he fully understood it. The verbal sewage, the attempts to hurt him and spike him and maim him on the field, the death threats to his wife and his young son. I don't think Jackie fully understood. But he fulfilled his promise to Mr. Rickey. And for 3 years, he turned the other cheek. He walked away. And to a proud, competitive man, educated man, it had to be the toughest thing that he could possibly do. But he did it. And through his raw courage, changed the course not just of baseball and sports in America, but our nation as well.
Pat Williams presents a variety of entertaining, thoughtful, and business-oriented topics to his audiences. Every speech is a slam dunk. He makes it his mission to provide relevant, customized content at every event. He meets with your group before and after the presentation, signs copies of his books, goes to other activities on site. In short, he brings all his life experiences and vast knowledge of business and sports to his clients at a personal as well as presentational level. Pat Williams, greatness, competition, and winning teams.
But I think you've got to live by risk sometimes. I'm not talking about foolish risk. I'm not talking about doing things that could threaten your life and just are outlandish. But I think in life sometimes you got to take a shot. You got to go for it. You got to stick your neck out, do some outlandish things, realizing that if God is in it, you know, He's going to make it happen for you and with you. And I think that's the best way to the best way to live. I don't think you want to get to the end of your life and realize there was so much more for you to do, so many other opportunities that you just passed up because you were fearful. One thing you can do about your competition and I can do about mine, and that is welcome it. That's our only alternative. Welcome your competition, because it's the competition that makes you better. It's the competition that drags out of us that which we should be doing anyway, but we don't do it till the competition makes us do it. Joe Paterno said, I love my competition. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be as good as I am. And Bella Caroli, who coached our women's Olympic gymnastics teams for years, in his rolling Romanian accent said, no competition. He said, no progress. By the way, it was also Bella who said, two things I hate, laziness and lousiness, he said. I do a radio show here in Orlando. A few years ago, I interviewed Joe Falls, the longtime Detroit newspaper man. And on the show, he said, On Joe DiMaggio's 70th birthday, I called him up out in California, talked to him for a half hour, wished him happy birthday. He talked to me for 30 minutes, a half hour. He said, the next spring, I was at the Red Sox training camp, then in Winter Haven, standing around the batting cage with Ted Williams. And he said, I told Ted about my session that winter with Joe DiMaggio. As I was walking away, Ted started screaming at me. He said, hey, Bush, he said, you call me on my 70th birthday. He said, I'll give you an hour. And Joe Falls said on the radio, can you believe it? He said, Williams and DiMaggio, competing in the 1930s, competing in the 1940s, competing in the 1950s, and here they are, two old men, he said, still competing with each other. And why do we compete? What's the big deal? Well, that's the fourth commitment that great teams make. They're committed to winning. So welcome your competition. And then what does competition do? What's that all about? Well, it leads to the only thing that matters in any field that we're in. And that's called winning. I mean, these reports and all that you've been hearing today, it's about W's. It's about winning. That's how they measure it in our business. W's. I mean, we're in the most bottom line business in the world. You can pick up the newspaper every day and see how we're doing. It's called the won and lost column. And if you got a lot of W's, everything is good. If you see a lot of L's, a lot of numbers under the letter L, things are not good in any town or at any university campus. I mean, I picked up the paper today, and I saw about 4 college basketball coaches were fired yesterday. You know why? Too many L's. Not enough W's. So folks, may I encourage you to be like Mike and be consumed with winning. I'm not talking about cheating, breaking the rules, poor sportsmanship. I am not encouraging that, but I want to encourage you to be consumed with winning. Every morning when your feet hit the floor, you've got to say, what can I do to help this store win more customers, win more sales, win, 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 win.
Pat Williams, greatness. Great leaders have great character.
The leadership skill I think that everybody needs every day is character. It's one of the 7 qualities I write about in my book, The Paradox of Power. General Schwarzkopf once said leadership consists of 2 elements, character and strategy. And then he said if you have to do without one, he said do without the strategy. And I want to tell you this, Walt Disney had no reason to be successful, none. He never finished high school. His parents were very ordinary Midwestern people. Walt Disney himself had no great skill other than that he was the world's greatest storyteller. He went bankrupt 12 times. He had 2 nervous breakdowns. He had his great ideas stolen from him, but the man would not quit. Nor would Winston Churchill. Through those dark days of World War II, it was Churchill's tenacity that kept that little island nation alive when they really had no reason to. And I think that's why Churchill said, the bulldog's nose is slanted upwards so he can breathe while hanging on. It's about tenacity. I think it's one of the great problems in the crisis of character that's going on in our country today. Just a total lack of humility. Because you see, with fame, with media attention, with power, with prestige come all sorts of perks and publicity and all the good stuff that comes with being a celebrity. And most men and women can't handle it. It absolutely rocks their world. It blows them completely out of all sense of priority. They just can't handle it. You may recognize the name of Frank Wells. For many years, he was Michael Eisner's partner in making the Disney empire come alive. Frank Wells was an adventurer. He climbed mountains. He did a lot of risky things, and it cost him his life a few years ago in a helicopter accident on the back slopes of Utah one winter when the helicopter went down. As his family was going through his personal possessions, Frank Wells' son came across his dad's wallet. In the wallet was a piece of paper, had been folded over many times. There was one sentence on the piece of paper. It said, "Humility is the essence of life."
Accomplished leader, best-selling author, top motivational speaker. Pat Williams, greatness.